Just want to give you a trigger warning before we get started.
Unscripted, unshackled, uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for more mature audiences only.
It's Miguel and Holly, Uncensored.
Hello and welcome to Miguel and Holly Uncensored. This is our off-air podcast that we do 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We were not here on Monday because it was a train wreck technology-wise.
A technological nightmare.
My goodness. So basically, I couldn't even do the show from our regular studio because the computer that runs the actual radio station crashed overnight, Sunday through Monday. So it was an hour and a half of like calling the help desk, IT having to physically come in and change stuff out. So I didn't even like finish the morning show schedule till halfway through the show because it was like that wild on Monday. So we couldn't even do the podcast. So we do apologize. But we would love it if you would leave us a review, or what would really help us is if you shared the podcast with one other person.
Yeah.
Just one other person. Be like, hey, girl, have you seen this before? And especially as a lot of people are about to go on spring break and they're looking for something to listen to, we would greatly appreciate it. So we gave a little trigger warning beforehand.
But you have to say what it's for. You have to say you have to say what the trigger warning is for.
Well, this is what this is for you to sort of walk through it, because Holly, you brought this, and this is why I said we gave a trigger warning because of why.
So what we should say always with the trigger warning is trigger warning, violence towards women. I think that's probably what covers it. But I don't, it's a trigger warning, but I don't think that it's like necessarily graphic content or anything like that. Just the topic of conversation is for violence towards women. So do with that what you will. Again, it's not graphic content. We're just going to be talking about some maybe more sensitive stuff if you're sensitive to that topic. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And here is do you want me to just play the TikTok, or do you want to preface it at all?
No, let me set it up, because you're going to be like, what in the hell am I listening to? So I go on TikTok, like when I have a free moment to my day alone, which is not a lot, by the way. So this is at night, I'm getting ready for bed, and I'm on TikTok, and there's 3 videos that we're about to share with you. The first video, and I came across them in this exact chronological order. And the first video is this blonde girl who is walking down the street of New York talking about the fact that she just got punched.
You guys, I was literally just walking and a man came up and punched me in the face. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. I can't even talk. Literally, I fell to the ground, and now this giant goose egg is forming, and I'm like, oh my God, it looks so crazy.
Okay, so I saw that one, and that was actually, I think I saw that one not yesterday, but the day before. So I see that, and I'm like, what in the hell is this? But like most things on TikTok, like it gave me pause, but I was like, that's fucking weird. So I kept on scrolling. Yesterday, so a day after I saw homegirl talking about how she got punched in the face, yesterday I come across this man who is talking about the video that I saw the day previously.
Here it comes.
Why are random women in New York getting punched in the street? We need to unpack that, because I've seen 4 videos in the past day of women getting punched by random men. Is it the same guy? Do we need to call Sherlock Holmes or Inspector Gadget? Because why are random white women getting knocked out in New York? I don't really understand what's going on in this world right now. A lot of just bullshit, because I would hate to be a woman and you can't walk down the street without getting mollywopped. That's insane. That's literally crazy, because as a man, like, I don't ever have that fear. I live in Chicago, a very walkable city. And anytime that I'm walking behind a girl and you're not breaking the distance, I either A, stop, slow the fuck down, or just cross the street, because I don't want your fight or flight to start activating. I don't want you to get nervous because I'm 6'2" with tattoos walking behind you. I'm not trying to fuck with you. The only thing that I do know is y'all need to catch bro who's randomly knocking white women out in New York. I don't know what's going on, but I don't want to see another girl on the timeline crying with a welt on her forehead. Get it together, New York Police, NYPD. Come on.
And before we talk more about this serious topic, obviously, if you were listening to that and you couldn't see it, the sound you heard in the background was him lotioning down his very
Gigantic
muscled
arms.
arms. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is a very attractive man. I need to follow his TikTok because
Gave
good
me pause. I was like, who's this?
I was like, okay, Mr. Man.
But then when he started talking about that, and I was like, thank God I saw the video yesterday because I know exactly what he's talking about. But clearly he's seen more than me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see that. And then I'm probably sitting out there for another, I don't know, 5 minutes, maybe not even 5 minutes. There's a lot of scrolling that goes on. So I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. So scroll. Then I come across this third video that is a stitched video. So it starts out with this white lady being like, what's going on here? And then you'll hear it switch immediately to this other black lady who's like, here's what's going on.
Yeah, sorry about the time.
Women in the last 48 hours I've seen on this app getting punched in the face in New York City.
They're escalating, and we know who they are. I went down the rabbit hole a little bit, and I found a video from a young man who this happened to his girlfriend, and he just happened to be there. He was in the car. So he was able to get out the car and serve dude hands and get him arrested. But now they're making sure that the women are by themselves on their phones. They are escalating. It's only going to get worse because there's literally only 2 other places for this to go. And I believe too, it's planned, it's coordinated, it's on purpose. It's being talked about somewhere. And with the summertime coming up, all ladies, make sure you protect yourself. Somehow, some way, stay protected. It's only going to get worse.
So obviously that's a little bit alarmist.
Right.
And I don't know, obviously that's one woman's opinion. And my first instinct is not always to jump to worst case scenario, but I do think that this is something that we need to pay attention to. So it's been floating around in my head this week. I'm depending on how it goes, I might even make it my can't let it go for the week on Friday. I don't know. Because it's been tumbling around in my head. And I have seen a couple other videos now of creators that I follow that have been at least talking about it, because I only saw the one girl the one time that had been punched, but I know there are more. And so I'm like, where is this coming from? So I did a real quick little dive in before we started the podcast, because up until about 10 minutes ago, that's all the information I had, same as you, these TikTok videos, right? But I do know what that woman was talking about at the end, the final lady, where she's like, they're escalating. There is this undercurrent of men in this country and other countries that hate women. These incel men, by the way, incel stands for involuntarily celibate. And I think we need to remember the root of that name, because involuntarily celibate means that they're not choosing celibacy. They're blaming women for not sleeping with them. They're involuntarily celibate. They want to get laid, but no women will have sex with them, and it's the women's fault. So it's this whole incel movement of these men that hate women. That's a very real thing. And that's what I think that, content creator number 3 that we just let you listen to was talking about. So having that little nugget of knowledge anyway, I did not certainly have time for a deep dive, but there's some content creators who are saying that this incel movement to punch women, which is, I don't believe we even have to say that, is sort of a reaction to something called the 4B movement. The number 4, the letter B, 4B movement, which I had never heard of until today. And apparently it came out of South Korea in 2019. And there's 4 tenets: no sex with men, no child rearing, no dating men, no marriage with men. Because apparently things have gotten so bad in South Korea that women are like, that's it. I am fucking done with the men. We're done. And so it was sort of like, roots in maybe like an offshoot of feminism, where feminism looks to, just bring equality, but this offshoot is just like, I'm fucking done. And it's not the only country. Like, I have seen over the past year, I would say, more of a thing on social media where where women are like, I'm done dating. And there is a concern that there are less and less people having children, and apparently it's women's fault because you're going to destroy the planet. Women are destroying the planet by choosing not to have birth. How selfish are you? And no one seems to, realize that it's like, well, where does the behavior of men come into this? Then you have I'm on such a roll right now without having stumbled. Hold on a second. So then you have the women that are like, I'm done with this. But you have a lot of men. Here we are, back on the track. A lot of men on social media, like the toxic kind, those very like
Andrew
alpha Andrew Tates. Thank
Mhm.
you. The Andrew Tate crowd, who are like, ladies, you're gonna have to settle. Sorry, but you're gonna die alone if you don't settle, because all these, wishes and dreams of a man that you want, it doesn't exist. So set your sights back a little bit, more realistically, and you're gonna have to settle. There are no men that are gonna be doing all this bullshit that you all ladies want. Sorry. I've seen that video stitched a lot by women that in response to that video are like, then we'll die alone.
Like,
That's
I'd rather
y'all's
die
fear.
by myself than be with a man that don't do
Disrespects
shit.
me and hates women. And so there's this movement, and I liken it to the 4B movement in Korea, but this is a different thing. So in America, I see a lot of women that are like young women saying, I'm not going to settle. And if I die alone, that's fine. And men seem to think that it's this horrific insult to be like, you're gonna be old and surrounded by cats. And women are like, that sounds great.
Like, ooh, and I can have girl dinners. I don't gotta pick up after nobody. I don't gotta worry about my cats cheating on me.
Right. And so I think that some of these Andrew Tate types think that they're being facetious, think that women are being facetious, and they're trying to call their bluff, but the women aren't bluffing. They're like, I don't know if it's the Me Too movement. I don't know if it's the pandemic that really started to take root, where it's like women are like, I don't want a partner that's not going to be a partner. I have had it with this bullshit of being disrespected by men, especially women who feel like they are single parents in a marriage because they're not only taking care of the children, they're taking care of their husband. And they're like, this is shitty. I don't want this. So I don't know. I just feel like those men going around punching women are part of a reaction to women saying, we've had enough. Men step up, and men saying, we don't have to step up. Women need to settle. And so I don't know. We're not there yet, but give it a couple of years. I don't know. We might be reaching critical mass of like, what's going to happen? I don't know. The birth rates are going down. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we're getting to a point now that as a people, as a human race, we have continually shat on people that we thought of that were less than. So
Correct.
From the beginning, it was always women. And then once we had the social construct of race, then it was, let's put down other races, other ethnicities.
Right. And a
s-
quick sidebar.
Mhm.
It wasn't always this way.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like women used to be the healers and the medicine women and the
Mhm.
holders of wisdom and the growers of life. And there was like a partnership. And I
Absolutely.
think probably that broke racial barriers, if there was even a thing. I don't
Right.
even know how far back we need to go for that. But you're right. Once there started to be this thing where men realized that, yes, we're the physically stronger situation we got going over here,
Mhm.
they put women below.
Absolutely. And
And the white men figured out, I don't need all this competition with these other dudes, so we're just gonna put different colored men
Mhm.
below.
And there are so many different aspects of that you can look back in just American history,
Yes.
and see how men have pushed women out. We've talked about this before in the podcast, how there was a podcast I listened to about medicine in America and how we are where we are, and how back in the day, women would be the midwives and would be the ones that were in charge of helping women give birth. And then once the science and the profession of being a doctor truly came into place, back 150 years ago, they were like, get out of here, women. You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know
Leave
your
this
own
to the
body.
men.
We got this. And so you have all these things that have just been building and building and building and building. And so now we're at a time where we all can talk to each other. We all have social media. And
Which is why they want to ban TikTok. Think about it.
absolutely. And so that is why you have these people saying, wait, I've had this experience. You've had this experience. We don't want to take this anymore, because we don't have to just do what we're told. We don't have to get into these marriages with men. I mean, think about when if you ever watched Mad Men back in the day, and part of the storyline was Don Draper's wife going to a psychologist, taking all these pills, and she couldn't realize why she was so unhappy, because she was unfulfilled, because she was in a marriage that she didn't care for, because she wanted a man to take care of her, because that's what society told her. And it wasn't until she found someone who she actually enjoyed being in a relationship with that she was like, oh, I don't need all this. This isn't like, I don't have to just be on beck and call for my kids and be a receptacle for my husband to have sex with me when he feels like it. And when you look back at all the rules back in the day, when women finally started to take the shackles off of the way that society has just continued to put them down, and now men are like, wait, I want to be the man of the household. I want to be in charge of everything. Have sex with me. And so this is the way that they retaliate, by just punching random women on the street in New York. This is where we are.
Apparently now from what it feels like to me, and this is my own personal opinion. What it feels like to me is some of these men are getting so desperate to be in the conversation, and they're so desperate to go back to the good old days when women would just be in the kitchen and wait on them hand and foot. And they haven't learned to use their words because their words are not working. So now we're just out here punching people.
Other words, make America great again.
Sure. So yeah, that's been on my mind. And I'm just like, what? And it scares me. Like, I think about this stuff all the time. Once you really dive into it, and once you actually deconstruct gender roles and look into kind of like, I feel like we're having a bit of a moment, kind of like when I went through sort of an awakening after George Floyd when it came to systemic racism. We hadn't really spoken about systemic racism before George Floyd. And George Floyd, very unfortunately, did make it possible for us to start having the conversations of not just being against racism, but being anti-racist. And it felt like my mind exploded. And I just wanted to keep reading more and more. And I was like horrified the more I read. But it's one of those things where once your mind gets expanded in that way, you can't put it back in the box. Like, you can try to ignore it if you want to, because it's uncomfortable, but it's always there. Right. And I almost feel like we're starting to have some sort of like George Floyd-like moment, but with patriarchy.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the Barbie movie came last year, and some people will criticize the Barbie movie. There was like, it's not that great. It was very feminism 101. It's too simple. You don't understand the amount of women that this is brand new information for, and men and women that this is brand new information for, and it's blowing their mind. And they're now starting to do a deep dive. And I sort of feel like it's that type of like, the more I would understand about roots of the patriarchy, and I almost feel like an idiot saying the word patriarchy so much, because I feel like it's an eye-rolly thing. People like, oh, here we go. She's going to be blaming the patriarchy again. But that's what they want you to do. Well, like, that's what they want you to think. And so you're not even afraid. You're not allowed to question it because, oh, I don't want to sound like a harpy. It's by design.
Hey, as a Black person, that was one of the first things I was taught in around white people. Don't always pull the race card. You don't need to pull the race card.
Right.
And so that's why, as a Black person, when things have happened, I'm always like, wait, was that racism? Because I don't want to pull the race card. Or did it really happen?
And it's an eye rolly thing.
Absolutely. Because I remember back in the early 2000s when I first started in radio and I produced and did traffic reports for a conservative news talk station. And this is when Obama was running for president. And I remember the morning host at the time who would, whenever he would use the term feminist, it was in the vein of a negative, like, those nasty feminists. Oh, Hillary Clinton, a feminist.
And her
My
pantsuits.
God, and her goddamn pantsuits. She's running that marriage. Bill don't do shit. That's why he went and had sex with Monica Lewinsky, because she's a feminist.
Oh,
I mean,
God, I forgot
we
about
take
that.
it back to those days. And so that's why I encourage people to use those words and to say feminist and to call racism when you see it, or when you see sexism or misogyny happening, because unless we continue to normalize those words, then they can get away with it.
Right.
And to me, I think a part of what's starting to happen with women and sort of the awakening is the abortion with the Supreme Court, and how the abortion movement, the anti-abortion movement, was like, well, we don't want to have a complete ban on abortion. We just want to make it, 16 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever. Like Donald Trump says, well, 12 weeks sounds like a good number. I don't know. Fuck science. And so now that it's happened and Roe has fallen, now you see that it wasn't just that. It was so much more. They want a complete ban, and they're even going. I mean, and even yesterday,
I know.
at the
And
Supreme
I was
Court,
texting with my best friend about this because I was like, I am not up on what happened yesterday. And so she was trying to fill me in during the
girl,
show.
let me tell you. So you have these lawyers and these doctors that are like, well, the FDA years ago said that this abortion pill was legal and that doctors could prescribe it. And then a few years ago, they were like, well, now you can have, oh God, what is it? Sometimes you don't see your full medical doctor, but it's the nurse practitioner.
The physician's assistant.
The physician's assistant, that they can write a prescription for this birth control or this abortion pill, basically. And so now these doctors said that I feel like you're making me have to use these pills, so they should outlaw it. Or they should take it back to where only doctors can do it, even though the FDA has made this legal for a long time. And even the conservative justices were like, so you could just not prescribe it. How is anyone making you? And there's this whole thing with going to the Supreme Court, and I may be getting this wrong, so please, I apologize. I listened to this podcast at 3:30 this morning as I was getting ready, so I may not recall all the right terms, but there's a term that when it comes to the Supreme Court that you have to have standing. That are you actually hurting someone? Like, you have to bring a case to the Supreme Court where you're hurting someone, and the justices were like, how is this hurting you?
And this is who's bringing this forward?
I want to say it was either 3 doctors or 3 lawyers or something like that.
That don't want to prescribe this anymore.
Basically. And so they were like, but just don't do it then. But we won't know their ruling until June, because that's when all the rulings. So people present their case, and then over the next few months, the justices write their rulings, and then we see who is in favor and who is not. But
I just feel like we're in dangerous territory too, because yes, the conversation is happening with abortions, and it is a hop, skip, and a jump away to birth control, which we've already seen in some states, them toying with birth control. So,
but here's sort of the conclusion to my point, is where, remember we were talking about a few weeks ago in Alabama how they were trying to, or they outlawed basically IVF, because that one judge said, well, an embryo is a human and that it's considered murder. And so IVF clinics in Alabama were like, well, wait, what if we accidentally drop one? Have we murdered a person now? So they stopped IVF in Alabama. And these are people who want to have kids.
Yeah.
These are people who want to give birth. And so now there is and I read the headline, I didn't get to read the full story, but there was a representative where they just voted who in a very red, deep South Alabama, they were able to flip that seat blue based off of that. So women in Alabama who are hardcore Trump were like, you've gone too far. You've gone too far.
That's what happens when you like the hypocrisy about all this conversation about when life begins. It is if you pull the thread hard enough. This always existed, by the way. If you pull the thread hard enough and you fully follow it to its ultimate conclusion, then then what you're saying is that IVF is actually murder. But that doesn't fit in line with like what they want. So they're like, oh shoot, we might have gone too hard. No, you did fucking go too hard. You went way too hard, but it didn't matter until it impacted you.
So I say all this to say is that what is happening is that even women in the deep South who are super Trumpers and they've been like, hey, I love Trump, but you're literally controlling my body. And this is what the left side has been saying of like, this is what they want. This is what they've been going for. This is what they have been, seething over for years and decades now is control over a woman's body.
Yes.
And I feel like women, conservative, moderate, people who don't even pay attention to politics are like, wait a minute.
Wait.
So you're telling me that if I'm pregnant and I have a non-viable birth, that I have to continue to carry this because the doctors and the hospitals are in fear of going to jail?
And my life might be in danger?
But I still have to do it?
They'll justify it every which way. And you know what? If you've now followed this to the logical conclusion, men want to control everything. And the one thing that they didn't fully have control over, and once they lost control of like women voting and women having credit cards and women buying houses, they've been losing control. And so they've been using religion and all these different tactics, all these different talking points. And at the end of the day, it all comes back down to let the men in charge have control over your body. And they've done a really good job at convincing a lot of these women that they're right. And so that's how they do it with like the tactics and the different various tactics, including religion. That's not just, there's more, but like including religion, where women are like, oh, you're right. I don't want to be a bad person. And all of a sudden you're the frog in the pot and now you can't get IVF and you're back to, oh, well, shit. It's all related is what I'm saying. It's all related.
Listen, I know every voting time we've had a president for the past, if you're an elder millennial, if you're a Gen X, it's been the most important election of your lifetime.
Every damn election has been like, can we have precedented times? No, we can't.
No, we can't. But
I blame Nixon.
Take it back.
I blame Nixon and Reagan, both of them.
But this is what I'm telling you, and I mean this with every piece of sincerity that I can muster. The time is 100% over for you to bury your head in the sand. If anytime we've had these type of conversations on this podcast and you sort of like roll your eyes and you're like, here Miguel goes, or here Holly goes again, literally your freedom is at play. That is what's happening right now, because there are some things that like I read and I hear about and I'm like, do I bring this to the podcast? But I don't want to be that person to bring it down. And I know that I'm interested in this, but like things could get very, very scary because you don't realize how delicate and how easily it is for us to lose the type and way of life that we've had.
Absolutely.
Because when you think about, what happened after the Civil War and how they were fighting for what does this nation look like? It's not people fighting over the South and the North right now, but right now they are fighting for what does it look like to be an American? What does it look like for you to have the freedoms that you have?
Are you willing to trade out your comfort and your, I guess, maybe safety for freedom, because ever since 9/11, we have been trading in the false promise of security for our, the reason why we take our shoes off. We can't bring a fucking full ass bottle of facial cleanser on the airplane
Or water
or anything is because they passed a bill quickly under the guise of, oh, this is just to keep you safe. And then it never got pulled back. They're going to push and push and push and push and push and push and push. And we are going to get to a point at some point where you really got to make a choice on, are you just going to sit idly by? And I don't even know what that looks like. Don't even ask me what I think that looks like. All I want you to do, like Miguel said, is just be aware that there's some shit.
Right. And it feels like a lot. I know it is a lot to keep abreast of everything. And sometimes it can be depressing. It doesn't mean you have to every day, know and
break,
be like,
okay?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. I have to. Sometimes I'm like, all right, let me go to my Audible and get back into my fiction book about magic so I can like get away from what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
But like, I promise you, and especially as a person who is Black and gay and who people where I have lived in Florida and North Carolina regularly want to vote on how I should live my life.
Yeah.
I have to be up on it. But so should you too. So should you. Because things could change
it's
easily.
Going to come for everyone. Eventually, you will be impacted, even if you're not right now.
Some resources for you that I've mentioned before on the podcast. Now I know if you are of the conservative nature, but I feel like maybe on this, you're like, all right, let me just take a little peek into the other side. A good podcast to listen to is Pod Save America. It's with 3 or 4 different guys that worked during the Obama administration. And when Trump was coming to power, they said, you know what? The conservatives have the Fox News ecosystem. This is before Newsmax and the other ones. Let's create our own liberal side of things so we can sort of break down the issues. And so under the Pod Save America podcast, they also have another podcast with women called Strict Scrutiny, where they go over the laws and they sort of, in a very sort of how we have these casual conversations about stuff, they're actually like lawyers and can like walk you through what the terms mean.
Much better than I.
Absolutely. I'm just telling you what I hear. Okay.
I know, right?
So I just wanted to give you the source of where I'm getting this information from so you can do your research on your own. Because, and listen, don't ever take my word for it. Don't ever take Holly's word for it. Do your own research. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say Pod Save America and Strict Scrutiny are good podcasts for you to listen to if you want to hear the breakdown of some of these issues. All right. We're getting off our soap boxes so we can go have lunch.
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Holly, what is your social media?
Radio Holly, if you would like to reach out, TikTok, Instagram. I'm on Twitter /X and Threads. I've been trying to do more Threads than Twitter. And there's a Facebook like page somewhere if you want to find that too.
Mine is Miguel Fuller on Instagram, TikTok, Be Real, and Peloton. And I am because we're going to be off, by the way, Monday and Tuesday of next week. So there won't be a Monday podcast.
Right.
But I am going to try to hop into Threads and sort of let my Twitter slowly go away, but it's been a hard transition.
It's tough. I still look at Twitter and I like a couple of content creators on there, but I've been trying to post more on Threads. So Threads still working out some of the kinks, but I like it.
We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. We'll see you Friday.
Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Catch it on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you listen to podcasts.